Hi. Welcome to the Human Design for Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Yvette Mayer, and this show's for you if you're done with cookie cutter marketing and ready to build your personal brand in alignment with who you really are. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Human Design for Marketing podcast with Yvette Mayer. And yes, that is me. I am coming back after a bit of a surprise hiatus. I have been through a more challenging period of my personal life over the last month it's one of the most challenging times in my life, to be perfectly honest. And therefore, I took some time away from being really front-facing in my business. I took weeks actually not in my business at all. And I'm finally starting to feel myself again. And look, I am always vulnerable, authentic, and real with my community about my experiences in business and life. So I will share with you what has been happening. So about 5 weeks ago, maybe 6, I went to an Australian human design conference. It was the first of its nature held up in the Gold Coast. So went up there looking to, meet like-minded people and get really inspired and hear from other human design experts about what they were up to. And it was amazing. I had a wonderful time, but sadly, on the second day, I got a message from my sister that my dad had been taken to hospital and that they were not confident he was going to make it. So I instantly, I was like, what do I do with this? Like, how serious, when, it's not the first time, honestly, that this has happened with my father. But it did seem like, I don't know, in that moment, I made a pretty quick decision that instead of staying until the end and having another night in the Gold Coast, that I'd get on a flight. So quickly moved everything around when I picked up my things, got on the plane. And within a few hours, I was back in Sydney and went straight to the hospital and spent some time with him. He actually was in better spirits and more with it than I was expecting. So at that point, I was like, look, I know this is serious, but maybe he's going to be okay. And kind of went back to life. But as the next 10 days unraveled, and they really did unravel, he went downhill. And so it was honestly so hard. It was so intense. There were days, many days spent sitting by his bedside with my close family, particularly my sister and my brother. So the three of us spent a lot of time with him towards the end. And yeah, after about 10 days, we lost him. He transitioned. And during this time, I made the decision that, and it wasn't a difficult decision. I just knew that I needed to be there focusing on my family and spending that time honoring my dad and his life, not in business mode, not in the hustle, not even thinking about it. So I am very, very grateful that I was able to let my clients know. And I was just about to start the frequency project, so I had to delay the start date of that. My private clients were completely understanding. My team kept things moving, and I literally was able to just disconnect and be there. And that is priceless. Honestly, that I have built the freedom in my life and in my business that I could do that. That was pretty special. And I could really see the difference in what I was able to do versus my brother and sister, who were both in more corporate style roles. And it wasn't that they couldn't be there. They just didn't have quite the same level of flexibility or or ability to completely switch off. They, you know, there were things that just had to be done, whereas I was in a position where I was able to go, you know what, no. And also, I think when you're on your soul's path and you're building a business in the way that I am, and I'm sure many of you are, there's this differentiator that I kind of realized in the process, is that for me to be at my best and offer my wisdom at its most potent, and to have the beautiful impact that I desire to have, I have to be in the right frequency. I talk about frequency a lot, but I literally could not motivate myself to think about selling something, or, you know, building my brand or getting attention, or like, it just all went out the window so quick. So even, you know, in that scenario where I was seeing things having to be done by my close family who don't have their own business, it's really interesting to me that I felt this sense of, I just couldn't. But you know what? If you're in a job, a job, you don't have that option. So that's the big thing that I went through. And then after he passed, the next week was spent organizing the service, and that was a really hard week as well. Yeah, it's really sad, and I know that it's going to be with me for the rest of my life. I think it kind of knocked me more than I expected. The other absolute truth of my father and the relationship we had is that he was an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic for much of my life, but over the last 10 years, not functioning. And living in assisted care because he couldn't look after himself. And as you would imagine, there's quite a lot of trauma and difficulty in the relationship as a result of that. But I must say, the last few years, I've felt a bit closer to him, probably because you're getting it all today. My mother has quite late or very late stage dementia, and so she's not cognitively here, and hasn't been for quite a while. So to have a father who was, and be able to have conversations and have that close connection and care, I think that, yeah, I think that I actually I had more closeness with him in recent years, and that had an impact, I think, on how my emotions have moved through this. I think it's really normal that I have some guilt that I didn't spend more time with him in these last few years, whilst we had a more harmonious relationship. But, you know, it is what it is. And look, it's something worth knowing, actually. I think it's really worth knowing that for all of the difficulty in that relationship, when it got to the end and when it got past the end, it all disappeared. And what I was left with was memories, so many memories, and most of them, the ones that I focused on, were the good memories of him as a human, as an energetic being, as a force in the world, you know. And planning for the service and doing that with my brother and sister, it was, you know, the music he listened to and the things that he did on a day-to-day basis and the words he used, and I said this in the eulogy that I gave. What I realized is that when somebody's alive, someone close to us that we feel has, you know, maybe not been their best self with us, that we have a tendency to really focus on the negative qualities. That's our go-to, right? We're negative bias people. But at the end, at the real end, the memories that come through are all the good ones. And it makes you really aware that we spend more time in this focus of not the right thing. And if I had my time again, if there's one thing that I would do differently, and this is something I want to leave with you, is that I wish with all my heart that I had the foresight to pull together the slides, like the photos and the photo montage for him. That was one of the things that I did. You know, I'm a very techie person. I know how to do these things. I wish I'd done it earlier before he passed, and he had the opportunity to look back over his life through all of those incredible memories and moments. That's the biggest regret that I have. And it would have been hard, let's be honest, it would have been hard because he would have known that that was an appreciation or a recognition that he was reaching his very end. And look, honestly, at the very end, he did know, but that was only the last 24 hours. So yeah, that happened, funeral. And then just as I thought that I was going to jump back all into work, I got COVID badly, like fevers, the whole festival of COVID, which was my second time. The last time was 2 years ago. And so that first week when I'd intended to be full steam at work, I did the bare minimum. So in the end, I was pretty offline for 3-4 weeks. And then last week was the 4th week. I was still not feeling my best, and I was definitely struggling to motivate myself around marketing. Like I was showing up for clients and commitments, like collaboration type things, but marketing my business, I just felt really not aligned to it. So it took till this week. So after 4 weeks, I'm finally back in. I'm enjoying it. I'm putting my focus back onto helping people and getting this wisdom into their hands. But I had to navigate this phase. I gave myself a lot of space to grieve and to not force it. So it's happened in its own time and its own sweet way, and I'm grateful for that. I also found myself Googling things like, I've lost my mojo, how to get it back. And it was really interesting because last week in the Frequency Project, which is live now with an amazing group of women, I realized that the thing that they wanted from this program as an extra, which I decided to deliver as a way of saying, I'm sorry for the delays that happened, was they wanted to learn more about, of all things, the motivation part of human design. Mirror much. And so this week, I ran this bonus session, which was all about motivation. So I thought that was something to kind of blend in because it's so related to what I've been going through, and also human design, marketing, and motivation. So here we go. So as I thought about pulling this together, I really got clear on, why did they ask for this? Why is this group of women seeking this particular part of human design, which, by the way, is a diving into the deep end, very advanced part of the system. It's not something that Ra Uru Hu suggests working with until you're really embodied in your type, strategy, authority, aligned with your profile lines. Like those are the things to focus on, okay? But the request came in to look at motivation. And so I thought to myself, what do they really want? And here's the answer, and you may relate to this as well. There was a level of, I struggle to be consistent in my marketing. I need to be more motivated. That's what was going on. And so for me, my brain went from there to, okay, do they need motivation? Is that really what's missing? Because let's be honest, motivation isn't consistent. Motivation goes up and down depending on what's going on in life. And I really love saying and agree that if you really want to show up and be more consistent, that it's not motivation you need, it's discipline. So I'm going to circle back to that at the end of this episode. So from that place of what are they really seeking, I pulled this together and I had to think about, well, I'm going to teach on human design motivation, but let's think about motivation more broadly. So there's really two types of motivation, and we're all unique in the way that we are motivated. But from a big picture, there is external or extrinsic motivation, which means that you're somebody who responds to things outside of yourself. Maybe it's an amount of money or some other type of goal, or it's winning, or it's achieving. It's something that is outside of you. This can show up in life where you know that for you to, for instance, get fit, that just joining a gym isn't enough. You actually need to book in a personal trainer so that you're on the hook to show up. That's external motivation. And then internal motivation or intrinsic motivation is being motivated by yourself. So this can look like being motivated to reach your potential, being motivated to grow as a human, being motivated to have clarity around your purpose. These are much more internal motivations. And depending on the way you're wired, you're going to feel that one or the other is more motivating for you. I'm definitely an external motivation person. But when we're talking about human design, for the most part, we're thinking about the way we operate internally and how we are motivated internally and intrinsically. So in the human design system, there is a part called the 4 arrows. It is, as I said, a more advanced element. It also is known as the variables, or it can be known as the 4 transformations. If you're looking at a body graph, then it's going to be the 4 arrows that you see right at the top on most of the body graph software, not all. If you're like, what are you talking about? Where do I find this? Go to my website and download your chart. It's definitely on there. So it's www.yvettemeyer.com/chart, and you'll get your free chart. And not only will you see these 4 arrows right at the top, but you'll also see in the text that there is actually a header that says motivation, and then there's a word. Okay. Next to the arrows at the top of the chart, these 4 arrows, there's also numbers. So the main thing we're going to talk about today is the dominant number, which relates to a word, and that's the word that you're going to see next to your motivation. There are 4 different elements in this arrows area, and we're only talking about motivation today, which, if you're looking at the chart, is the top right arrow. It sits on the personality side of the chart, so it's more about awareness and personality versus the other arrows, which are more about body. One of them is about digestion and the other one is environment. The 2 on the right are motivation and perspective, but we're just talking about motivation. So what human design teaches us in these 4 arrows is how to become even more aligned and more in flow and ease with our energy based on these more nuanced and advanced degrees of knowledge and wisdom. Now, all 4 arrows are based on the profile line system, so the 1 through 6. So if you look at the numbers, you're going to find that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And overall, the numbers always have a flavor that is consistent. 1 through 6, it's always the same. It's always foundation at the bottom, more hermit type energy at number 2. 3 is more experiential, more open. 4 is more about connection. It's more about friendliness, opportunities. 5 is the kind of savior energy or the helper. And then 6 is the more wise, mature energy of a sage or a role model. Okay, so these are themes no matter where you see those 1 through 6 lines, and it's true of the 4 arrows as well. But we're just going to focus on the main 6 lines. These are the color lines, if you want to get technical, of motivation. Now, the other thing to know about motivation is that there is a thing called transference. Transference is where we go to, or what motivates us when we're out of alignment. So it's not correct for us. It's more of a shadow behavior or a not self behavior. So you're likely to bounce around between your more aligned motivation and your transferred motivation. So first I'm going to tell you what the 6 motivations are, and then I'm going to explain how they move from aligned to not self with transference. Okay. Hopefully by this point, you know what your motivation is, so you can start to interpret this for yourself. So the first line is known as fear. This is another place where Ra has used quite provocative type of languaging. So if you're the one, you are motivated by fear. I happen to be the one. So I relate. I'm like, what do you mean I'm motivated by fear? That doesn't sound good. But it's more about the same energy of the one, no matter where it shows up, of wanting to feel safe and secure and be on strong foundations and to have all of the information. So the thing that is most motivating for someone and aligned for someone who is a fear motivation is the desire to get to the bottom of all of the information, to go deep, to have a really solid understanding and a foundation of knowledge. And this is going to show up in marketing because you're somebody who is only really going to want to be motivated to share when you feel like you have enough information on a specific topic. Number 2 is hope. Hope is, and this reminds me of the gate too as well. Hope is somebody that is fairly optimistic by nature and has these natural gifts, but believes the universe is going to direct them and has got even more responsibility for leading them in the right direction, but that there are times when the 2's unique gifts are really required. And so they're motivated by those instances where it's like, you know what, my specialty, my gift is really something that is required here. That's going to move me into action. So the 2 line is somebody that is like, it's all going to work itself out. Things will always work themselves out, and only motivated or mainly motivated when there is like a situation that requires something of a skill that is unique to this individual. So that's the hope motivation. The 3rd line is desire. So the 3rd line is somebody that is actually kind of externally motivated by what they desire. They may desire money, they may desire success, they may desire a holiday. Whatever that desire is, it tends to be something that they're very motivated to move towards, and therefore it's a little bit of an easier one to understand. It's like, all right, if I'm going to need to get motivated and I have this as my aligned motivation, then I've got to set some goals and I'm going to really go for them. And I've got to make sure that it's things that I definitely want. The 4 is the need motivation. The need is its partner or its opposite is the 1, which is fear. So with the 1, you want all the information. With the 4, you only want to focus on what absolutely needs to be done. And so for a need motivation, it's really important that you don't look at the bigger picture, that you just identify, well, what needs to be done? I only need to do what needs to be done, and are very clear on that. That's going to feel far better for you in your energy and in your aligned impact. The 5, another not great word, is motivated by guilt. Okay, let's flip this one. It's the kind of guilt that happens if somebody's in trouble and you don't help them. All right. So it's a bit of an oxymoron, if you like. Really, what you're motivated by is helping, is like seeing that people need your unique talents and skills, and that you have the answers to their challenges. That's really motivating. That's going to be what gets you into action. And so, very much the essence of the 5 in general, it's you're motivated and you're called into action when you see that others require your help. Then the 6, the beautiful 6, is motivated by innocence. The 6 line is just such a rich tapestry of inspiration in all places. And here in motivation, it's somebody that is more motivated by being authentic, true and natural, and detached from like those big desires, which is its transference. And in a place of when I detach and I'm authentic and true and it feels light and playful, then I'm actually going to be more motivated, want to show up, want to step into the, into the arena, so to speak. So that's the line 6. So feel free to jump into my DM if you're like, I don't really get this, but can you tell me a bit more about which of those is your motivation and what it means? But importantly, let's circle back now to transference, because second time I've said negative bias on this podcast episode, but here you go. Because the fact is that we as humans tend to put our attention on our not self or our negative side or our negative bias more than on our aligned way of moving through life. And so you are probably equally or more familiar with the not self, the transferred motivation, than you are with your aligned motivation. So how this works is if you are a fear motivation, your transference is need. So if you find yourself not getting to the bottom of things and just focusing on the things that need to get done, you won't feel authentic and you won't be as magnetic. So notice when you're in a rush and you're trying to cut down your workload and skip steps, cut corners, and know that that's actually not correct for you. The 2 with the hope, when you're not in your place of I'm trusting the universe, I have a clear intention, but I don't need to hustle and move and get out and get into other people's business. When you're instead in a place of, oh my God, everybody needs my help, I'm seeing all these people with problems and challenges and I have to go and do and I have to fix, you're not in your natural motivation. That's your guilt showing up. That's the guilt state of the 5, which is the transference for the hope state. The desire, when you're not in your most motivated self, you get a bit complacent and you're detached and you're like, whatever, I'm just going to do what feels good for me. This is the innocent motivation. I'm just going to have fun. Screw it. It's all too hard. I don't want to go after that big goal after all. You're in your transference because you're actually motivated by desire. And then we flip back the other way. So I kind of touched on this last time, but if you are a need motivation and you find yourself not moving and lost in the detail and trying to figure everything out, then you're in your transferred motivation, which is fear. It's not correct for you. You just need to focus on the things you need to focus on. If you are a 5 line, and rather than actually spotting people with opportunities and wanting to help them and being motivated to play a part, and instead of that, you're being more passive and you're trusting that the universe is doing its thing, and you'll only step forward and get involved when only you can help, then you're in your transferred motivation, which is hope. Hoping that everything will work out without you getting involved is another way of putting this one. No, you're actually meant to get involved. And you're meant to create the solutions, and that is going to be big for your marketing content as well. And then our last transferred motivation is if you are a innocence and your natural and aligned motivation is to be authentic and light and playful and detached from outcomes necessarily, and you find yourself being very task-oriented, very goal-focused, then you may be in your transferred motivation of desire. So that's a snapshot of the 6 motivators, which I'm sure you've had a aha or a takeaway from. But I'm not going to leave you there, because I think this conversation needs to be had with you, which is we cannot rely on motivation alone when it comes to what drives us to be consistent as marketers and business owners. The most important factor in building a personal brand that is magnetizing dream clients and continually supporting you and generating, continual leads into the business that grow and profit so that you stay in business, you have to be consistent. And it doesn't matter if you are lacking motivation. Sure, there's going to be times like I've just been through where you're going to go completely offline. But for the most part, you need to find your motivation. And if you can't find your motivation, you need to be disciplined. So what does that look like? And why is it important? Well, there's a couple of reasons that motivation is important to you, but let's go beyond it into the discipline piece as well. Visibility. You need to be visible. You need to be visible. People need to know who you are and what you offer and how you can help them. They need this to be top of mind so that you're somebody that they think of when they have the particular problem that you can help with. But most of us, in fact, all of us, have blocks around showing up and being visible that are very mindset related. The biggest blocks I see in my work, there are 3. The first one is a block around fearing being vulnerable and people perceiving you as weak or sharing too much. Ultimately, you won't be liked if you're that authentic or if you fail. That's big. That's big. And it's normal, right? But I want you to feel this from me. When you are receiving vulnerability, and I've been very vulnerable on this episode, it is highly engaging and it endears others. We don't want to be pumped with marketing that is sales oriented and bright, shiny, look at me. Like, we just don't. We're not, as humans, going to feel a deep resonance or connection if that's the only type of message being put out there. We are going to walk towards people that are real and human and authentic, and this is only getting more important. So trust yourself that being vulnerable is not weakness. It is not also important what people that aren't in entrepreneurship think of you. It's not. I know you worry about what your friends think, what your school friends thought, or the people you used to work with in corporate. They're watching you showing up online. They think you're an idiot or whatever you're telling yourself. It's a bunch of BS, and it's just not important. If they're not doing it too, if they're off living a less fulfilling, paycheck to paycheck, plug in, plug out, do the thing. I mean, you don't want to do that, and there's good reason, but it does take a lot of resilience to move yourself through that vulnerability and that fear, but you can do it. The second one is fearing rejection. Also huge. I mean, I think this stems from us from childhood, wanting to fit in. We want to be liked, right? And then we get online and suddenly it's a completely transparent environment where people can see how many followers, are people liking that? Are people commenting on that? So we start to fear that we'll be rejected by the audience. And that can be debilitating, actually leading to, I don't have anything worthwhile saying. Nobody cares what I've got to say, and nobody engages with me anyway. So why should I bother? I'll tell you why you should bother. Because you have no idea what is going on with other people. It's not rejection. It's wrong time, wrong place, wrong message. None of this is personal. You have a gift and you are here to make a difference. You need to get over this. You need to get over this fear of rejection. And remember that this is not about whether you're liked. It's simply a matter of showing up with the right message at the right time to help the right person. That's it. That's it. And then the third one is imposter syndrome. I've definitely had my run-in with imposter syndrome, and it still crops up. No matter who you are and how far along you are or the size of your business, there's always a time when you think, I don't have the qualifications, or who am I to do this, and so on and so on. And I know in my journey of entrepreneurship, there's been a couple of big moments. I was speaking to the group today about when I was in my first mastermind just a year after leaving corporate, and I was in a retreat in person, and I was so used to being a big wig for my corporate career. Like, I had a huge profile, highly regarded. I was a big deal. I walked into rooms and people who knew who I was and they respected me. And I sat in this retreat and I felt so small. And I was like, what have I done? I feel like I shouldn't be here. I'm not good enough. I haven't done enough, blah, 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 blah. Just know that everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through this. It's not true. It's just your negativity running rampage inside your monkey mind. You need to let that stuff go. So what do we do with this? Well, the biggest thing is to know that you need to be uncomfortable to grow. I loved Brené Brown's work, and in particular, the expression courage over comfort. You need to lean into courage, to connect with the fire in your belly, and to actually go after what you're here to do. Be the biggest expression of yourself. Live up to your potential. That takes courage. It takes doing things that other people are unwilling to do, but you have it in you to make a choice. I also shared today The Man in the Arena. Let's call it The Woman in the Arena. I think it's by Thomas Roosevelt. Read it, integrate it, know it. It's only for others who are in the arena with you, doing what you're doing. They're the only people that can relate to what it feels like to be an entrepreneur, what the journey is, what the personal development that occurs through that process. It's big. It's not for everyone, but it is for you. That's why you've said yes to it. And I do believe that if you feel the call, then you're meant to do it, that you're being tapped, because you do have something of incredible value to offer. Listen to that, trust in it, go after it. Don't buy into all of this mindset stuff that is just going to keep you stuck and small and not living up to your potential and not building a legacy, which is ultimately what is driving you. And I know that to be true because I've worked with so many hundreds of women. Courage over comfort. The next thing I would say to you is there are things that are going to help you reconnect and remotivate, find your mojo. And yes, I've had to do a bit of this myself lately. The first one is to not rush in, but to pause and really get into your big vision. Why did you get into business in the first place? What is it about your individual expression and value that you are passionate about sharing with the world? Really come back to a place of who am I here to impact and how, until you feel that fire. That's number one. And it's so freaking important. Number two is know that It's only your mindset. It's not real when any of these blocks are coming up for you. Just let them go and say to yourself, I am not going to buy into my BS anymore. The next thing you're going to do, the third thing you're going to do is remember that it's not about you. At the end of the day, the thing that motivates you is your future clients and customers and your existing ones. You're here to be of service, to transfer your wisdom, your skills, your experience into outcomes for others that desperately need somebody like you. That's who you're here for. That's what you're showing up in your marketing for, to connect with that person. So all this stuff that's like me. What if they don't like me? What if they feel like an idiot? What if I'm not good enough? You're just making your marketing messaging about yourself and what it means about you, when actually you're here for the other. Get back into service. Bring yourself back to a place of, that's right, this isn't about me. This is about what I'm here to do in the world and who I'm here to help. That's big. That's actually the biggest one for me. Beyond that, celebrate yourself, the small wins along the way, the inches that you move forward, the more consistency that you show up in. It is going to build some momentum over time if you just inch by inch move yourself forward. But celebrating that is going to anchor it into your body and help you feel into, I want to keep going, I want to keep moving. And then from there, you're going to snowball into, wow, now I'm more consistently visible and I'm actually seeing results. And then the final one on that, on kind of a related topic, is at the end of the day, it's all just a process to take yourself through, to detach from any one individual share or post or like or engagement, and take a bigger picture of, I am just going to walk myself step by step towards what I want, and I'm going to make it about the other. And over time, I know that I'll look back and realize that it's gotten a whole lot easier. It gets easier. It's like a muscle. You just got to keep showing up, feeling resistance, feeling uncomfortable. And over time, before you know it, that feeling of I don't want to will have become so much smaller. It may come up from time to time, like what I've been through recently, but the same things that I've just spoken to you about are going to get you back into it. And I'm feeling that this week for sure. Like I made reels for the first time in 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm being more in my stories, and you know, every day I'm like, oh my God, you're doing so well, and the engagement's up and people are buying things from me every day, and it feels so good. And yeah, it's really like my business loves me back again. I was feeling like there was no love going on between me and my business, but from where I sit now, the love is back and it feels amazing. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit different, bit of a blend, talking about my own personal life and then getting into motivation and ultimately why you need motivation, which is in many instances from a marketing perspective to be consistently visible. I trust you've taken something away from this that is going to help you move forward and feel more motivated, or at least have more discipline. And I look forward to being back in your ears again soon. Bye for now. There are heaps more resources in the show notes. I can't wait to be back in your ears again soon. Bye for now.